think we just thing fires me up because all my 20, 30, and 40-year-old friends became their parents overnight because they're like, I don't want to learn this. It's a JPEG. Like watching 27-year-olds say it's a fad, watching 36-year-olds say like, I can't figure out a non-custodial wallet. Like, I don't want a Coinbase. Like they're scared of this the way parents were scared of putting credit cards into a computer. Like literally watching 20 and 30-year-olds over the last 12 months become their 65-year-old parents has been one of the most joyous things for me because I let them, I trap them. I let them, because these are my friends. I let them, I'm like, that's the shit you used to make fun of your mom for.
Yeah, totally, man. Totally.
Technology. We'll talk, brother. Congrats on all your success. We will cross paths again. Thanks for being on the show.
Thanks, man. Great talking.
Like watching 27-year-olds say it's a fad, watching 36-year-olds say like, I can't figure out a non-custodial wallet. Like, I don't want a Coinbase. Like they're scared of this the way parents were scared of putting credit cards into a computer. The Gary Vee audio experience. Vayner Nation, what is good? We are back on the podcast 2022. I'm really not planning on doing too many interviews or episodes. I'm focused on VeeFriends and Vayner X. I think the speaking, the books, even the content, I'm down to the lowest levels this week in 7 or 8 years. But when I get an opportunity to do a show where I think all of you who are listening are going to really enjoy the combo or have wanted to see the combo. I've definitely heard through my navigating of the world that people wanted Mark and I to interact or how would we jam. And I'm really excited that he's on the show. So I'm gonna let him introduce himself and how he likes to speak about himself. I'm curious myself. And then we'll get into a little bit of like book life because he's a beast, and then maybe just shoot the shit on a bunch of different stuff. So Mark, how are you?
I'm great, man. It's great to be here. I can't believe we've actually never talked before.
The amount of people, there's people like you, and there's probably 15 other people over the last decade that, how like, it's almost like a neighbor you've never talked, but you head nod, like I've always felt that I had these kind of like people that ran in similar circles, shared friends.
Yeah.
And it was just sheer serendipity that we weren't at the same conference, at the same event, that if we met 7 years ago at a South by Southwest, we would talk 13 times a year versus not once for 7, like it's one of those kind of things.
Totally.
It's actually, when Kobe Bryant passed, I actually promised myself to slightly do a better job. I've done a little bit of a better job with it, but I'm such a mad scientist in my lab, my family, which is my real life, and then professionally, my laboratory and my crew around my laboratory cheer and root for everybody on the outside, but spend so little time on it. So I find myself in these predicaments where, but I want to be a little more thoughtful because I definitely feel like I've always loved the way people have talked about you and that know you, that know me. So I'm happy we're here.
Yeah, me too, man.
Thanks.
So quick intro. I'm actually from the blogging world. I started blogging in 2007. Actually discovered you back in like 2009, 2010. Basically blew my career up going viral on Facebook and Twitter back in the day, back when you kind of could go viral on Facebook and Twitter. Grew a massive audience, millions of readers each month, parlayed that into a publishing deal. Books did super well, have sold about 15 million books.
Crazy numbers. How many have you written?
4. 1 self-published and then 3 conventionally published. The last one was I co-wrote Will Smith's memoir with him. It came out a couple months ago. And then
what was the experience? What was the experience in co-writing?
With him, it was great. I don't really aspire to be a memoirist or a ghostwriter or anything like that. It's just
he was cool enough, and the whole thing was cool enough to do.
he and I really hit it off, and I think
did you come across Brad Haugen in his world? I know he's on the production side. Did that name? I think he works on some of the content side. Good friend of mine. Anyway, keep going.
But yeah, I mean, he and I, like, he was in the right spot in his career to do the book what I would call correctly, you know, which is like actually open up and actually get into kind of the ugly parts of his life.
Yeah.
And then I think he and I just, like, on a personal level, our skills and personalities complemented each other really well. So that ended up, and I mean, I'm a 90s kid, so
yeah,
I mean, he's the fucking prince.
I get suckered into things all the time.
Yeah. But honestly, I mean, it was such a great experience. But it's funny because, I mean, now that book has done so well, you know, I've talked to my agent. She's like, you know, other celebrities going to want to do stuff and blah, 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 and people are going to reach out. I'm like, you know, I don't know, actually. Like, I don't know if that's something I really want to focus on. So
it sounds horrible.
I think if you don't have the right person, or if there's not a good chemistry, I think it would be horrible.
Yeah, it's kind of like the way I think about VaynerMedia, like clients. Like, it actually is hard. When I talk about eating shit, I don't think people really understand. Like when you're creative, having two cooks in the kitchen is incredibly challenging.
Yeah.
It's not that it's horrible. I use that as a slang term for, man, that you want to say serendipitous and the person wants to say, you know, by chance. Like, you know, I love my art of being a content producer and being a businessman, and have absolutely, with my father, my brother, you know, especially when it's family like that, had challenges when, you know, I knew what I wanted to do was right, but I wanted to be empathetic or have compromising capabilities, or, you know?
Yeah.
So
for
anyway.
Sure. And it's there were moments where it's like there were certain things that I felt should be in the book, or certain directions I thought certain chapters should go. And it's, at the end of the day, it's his book.
Yeah.
You know, so
good for you to have, like, because some people with no leverage and juice aren't great at having that humility. You came in with some real front-facing consumer leverage. You're, you know, obviously the reason so many people have brought you up to me is because I say the word fuck so much, and you've, like, obviously, you know.
It's such a dumb reason for people to associate us, but
it's incredibly fair. Actually, I've had more than a couple people ask me through the years, probably 5, which is a lot if you think about it. Hey, are you pissed he wrote that book?
Oh,
like, I'm like, no, I'm pumped he wrote that book. I'm like, you know, not from like that, more like they just really think there was a lot of crossover of beliefs. And then obviously the word fuck, I think, actually, just to go right into it, because there's so many marketing, branding, content people, you have 2 books with that in it. I'm sorry, I have a cough, everybody. Sorry if this hurts the podcast a little bit. Do you think, like, the brilliance of what Tim Ferriss did? I met Tim around that time as well. We were all kind of running around those, you know, and he ran Google AdWords to figure out which title would work. Yeah. You know, obviously, you know, Ryan Holiday and others, I watch how people navigate. Do you think that in the title had real impact, no impact, some impact on the success?
Real impact, for sure.
Real impact.
I mean, so that book, you know, you mentioned the Tim Ferriss thing, running AdWords to kind of figure out 4-hour work week. A lot of Subtle Art was very much market tested through blogs. Yeah. So there are
you knew what was working.
Absolutely. And that title, so I originally started writing that book with a different title, and then I wrote an article called The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck, and it went fucking bananas. And I was like, oh shit, okay, maybe this should be the book, right? So there are a lot of sections in that book that grew out of viral blog posts. You know, it's like, I know this works. I know this, like, gets people. Yeah.
Let me ask you a question. For the people listening, what is the 1, 2, 3 sentence recap of The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck, the 2016 book that went bananas?
Basically, I always joke that it's a book about values, but you know, if I told people it was a book about values, nobody would read it. So you got to put fuck in the title and kind of trick people into it. But you do realize you just completely in 2 sentences recapped my entire career.
I would argue
So
that in 2 seconds,
here's the thing, Gary.
the amount of shit I eat.
Here's the thing, man.
Please.
And I think you and I landed in this spot for the same reason, because you and I live and breathe and eat and sleep the online social media world. And what you quickly discover when you're in that world is that there's an infinite amount of stuff out there. And so if you don't figure out if you don't discover values to sort that stuff, if you don't figure out like principles of like, this is what matters to me, this is what's important to me, and this is just crap that I'm going to ignore, you're going to drown. And I quickly just, coming from a self-help angle, I quickly discovered that a lot of my generation's problems, a lot of the anxiety and depression and stress that my generation goes through, it comes from just not figuring out what those values are. What are those sorting mechanisms in your life? And
then when you don't have your own, you're grabbing onto people's.
Totally.
Grabbing to others, you're completely succumbing to outside affirmation. And the second you are living for outside affirmation, it's game over.
Yeah.
It's funny. I remember seeing